What if the reason your goals keep failing has nothing to do with your willpower, your schedule, or even your ambition? What if the whole framework you've been using to set work-life goals is fundamentally broken from the start? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why most people struggle to find balance and, more importantly, how to fix it permanently. Let's be honest for a second. You've probably tried to set better boundaries before. Maybe you told yourself you'd stop checking emails after 7. Maybe you blocked off weekends for family time. Maybe you downloaded a productivity app that promised to change everything. And for a few days, maybe it even worked. But then life crept back in, the boundaries dissolved, and you found yourself exactly where you started, exhausted, stretched thin, and wondering why you can't seem to get this right. Here's the truth nobody talks about. The problem isn't your follow-through. The problem is that most work-life balance advice treats your life like a math equation. 40 hours of work plus 20 hours of rest equals balance. But your life isn't an equation. It's a living, breathing, constantly shifting experience. And that's exactly why cookie-cutter goals fall apart every single time. So, what actually works? Let me break this down in a way that's practical, personal, and built for the kind of life you're actually living right now. The very first thing you need to do is get radically honest about what balance means to you specifically. This sounds obvious, but it's the step almost everyone skips. Balance for a freelance designer working from home looks completely different from balance for a parent managing school pickups and a 9-to-5. Balance for an entrepreneur in growth mode looks nothing like balance for someone recovering from burnout. Before you can set goals that actually work, you need to define what the destination looks like for you personally, not for some idealized version of yourself you saw on social media. Try this right now. Ask yourself, what does a genuinely good week feel like? Not a perfect week, a good one. What are you doing? How do you feel when you wake up? What's happening in your evenings? When you get specific about the feeling you're chasing, you stop setting vague goals like work less and start setting meaningful ones like protect 2 evenings per week for things that restore me. Now here's where things get really interesting and where most guides completely miss the mark. Work-life balance isn't a static destination. It's more like a dial you constantly adjust. There will be seasons where work demands more and seasons where your personal life needs the center stage. The goal isn't perfect equilibrium every single week. The goal is intentional flexibility, where you know when you're leaning one way and you have a plan to recalibrate. This is where values-based goal setting changes everything. Instead of setting goals round time, set them around your non-negotiables. What are the things in your life that, if you neglected them consistently, would leave you feeling hollow? For some people, it's physical health. For others, it's presence with their kids, creative expression, or meaningful relationships. When you anchor your balance goals to your core values, they stop feeling like restrictions and start feeling like commitments you actually want to keep. Let's talk about a real example. Imagine someone, a marketing consultant, working from a home office, constantly blurring the line between work and personal time. She's productive, she's successful, but she's also slowly burning out. Her old approach was to set time-based goals. Stop working by 6, take Sundays off. They never stuck. The reason? They felt arbitrary. They weren't connected to anything she actually cared about deeply. When she shifted to values-based goals, everything changed. She identified that connection and creativity were her core values outside of work. So she set goals like protect at least 1 evening per week for a creative project that has nothing to do with clients, and have 1 real conversation with a friend or a family member every few days where work doesn't come up. These goals didn't feel like sacrifice. They felt like investing in who she actually wanted to be. Now let's get into the structure of effective goal setting, because intention alone isn't enough. You need a framework that gives your goals staying power. First, make your goals specific and sensory. Don't say, "I want more time for myself." Say, "I want to spend 30 minutes every morning doing something that is purely for me before I open my laptop." The more vividly you can describe the goal, the more real it becomes in your brain. Second, build in flexibility from the beginning. Life is unpredictable. If your goal requires a perfect week to work, it will fail. Instead, create a version 1 and a version 2. Version 1 is what happens in a normal week. Version 2 is your minimum viable commitment for a chaotic week. This way, you never feel like you've completely fallen off track. Third, track how you feel, not just what you did. Most productivity systems track output, but balance is about how you're experiencing your life. Keep a simple weekly check-in with yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how recharged do I feel? What contributed to that score? What depleted me this week? Over time, you'll start to see clear patterns, and that data becomes incredibly powerful. Fourth, celebrate the small wins. This sounds fluffy, but it's backed by how our brains actually work. When you acknowledge progress, even tiny progress, you reinforce the neural pathways that make the behavior easier to repeat. So when you protect that evening you plan to protect, notice it. Give yourself credit. Tell someone. The brain responds to recognition, and it makes the next right choice easier. Now, I want to address something directly, because if you're a remote worker, an entrepreneur, or a freelancer, you face a specific challenge that most work-life advice completely ignores. When work and life share the same physical space, the psychological boundaries become almost invisible. The laptop on the kitchen table doesn't know when you are supposed to be done for the day. You have to create the signals that most office workers get automatically. This means deliberate transition rituals matter enormously. A short walk at the end of the workday. Changing your clothes. A specific playlist that signals the shift. These rituals might sound small, but they're actually communicating something powerful to your nervous system. They're saying this chapter of the day is closing and another one is opening. Over time, these rituals become anchors that make psychological separation real, even when your physical space doesn't change. Let's also talk about one of the biggest silent saboteurs of balanced goals, and that's the approval trap. Many high achievers secretly believe that being constantly available makes them more valuable. That saying yes to everything proves their worth. That rest is something they have to earn. If any of that resonates with you, here's what I want you to hear. The most effective people, the ones who sustain high performance over years, not just months, are the ones who treat recovery as seriously as they treat productivity. Rest isn't the reward for hard work. It's the foundation that makes hard work sustainable. So as you start setting or resetting your work-life goals, I want to leave you with this. Stop trying to achieve balance by restricting yourself. Start designing a life that genuinely reflects what matters to you. Set goals anchored in your values, build in flexibility for the hard weeks, track how you feel instead of just what you do, and celebrate every step forward no matter how small. The path to balance isn't about doing less. It's about living more deliberately. And that shift, from reactive to intentional, from surviving to designing, is available to you starting right now. If this resonated, save this video for the next time you feel like you're losing your footing. Share it with someone who's running on empty. And drop in the comments, what's one thing you're going to protect this week? I genuinely love to know. See you in the next one.